Hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we fixed some outstanding deed tracker file format change bugs, including viewing deeds of other characters, upgrading some version 2 to version 3 files, and issuing issues with the Disambiguate window and the deed or quest window, which are two different ways of figuring out did you just complete a deed. And today, we're going to start by tracking down an error I'm seeing when I'm loading the plugin, which is why we have debug messages. And then we're going to see about implementing the difference between a deed that has a minimum level and a deed that requires being in a certain, being done when you're at server cap level. And historically, version 1 of the deed tracker kind of used the minimum level as both of those things, but it meant that if you were at server cap on a legendary server, that it would show you as being able to do the deed when you couldn't yet, because the minimum deed level might be 75, and you're sitting here at level 60 because your legendary server hasn't gotten there yet. So you're at server cap, but not at the minimum level of the deed. So that's one been on my to-do list because I keep playing on legendary servers and it keeps on biting me. Okay, but before we get into that, there were a couple of outstanding questions from Little Redhead's stream just before mine that I thought, well, hey, I can pull these up. So the first was player versus monster player. If you're coming into the game and you're looking at creating a monster player, first of all, make sure you're not on a legendary server. And then if that is the case, you'll see a monster play button on the upper right-hand corner. Let me make sure we're seeing the right thing. Okay, yes, this monster play button. So if you click that, you'll switch from the Free People's creation screen over to the monster play creation screen, or the Freeps and Creeps, as was said. And this is where you can choose between, on the left here, Reaver, Weaver, which is more spidery, Black Arrow, which is, I think, a ranged Uruk, a War Leader, a Stalker, ooh, very wargy, and a Defiler. And those are probably going to play similar to how you're encountering them in when you're playing on landscape. You know, I would expect the Defiler to be ranged, spellcasty kind of thing. I'd expect the Stalker to be very in your face, and so on. So creating one of these is going to feel very similar, I imagine, to creating a Free People's. You're going to need to name it. Yeah, let's do a random name and create. No, okay. I wasn't sure if we would also be able to customize like number of eyes for the spider or whatnot, but we hit create, we come on in, and that's it. It's been years since I've created a monster player, I think. So when you first get in, you're going to get some tutorial stuff just like you would over on the Free People side. You're going to be right in front of your boss, so I think whatever monster type you are, Uruk or Spider, whatever, you're going to see someone of your type kind of welcoming you into the play. I am delighted to see that spiders can jump. If you are not a fan of spiders, I recommend not playing as one of these. And one of the things about the Ettenmoors, where we are, is that the characters are all the same level. So all the Freeps and all the Creeps are level 140. So they're going to be scaled up from whatever they were if they're lower than that. So they're going to be differentiating themselves in other ways, like here's a traits panel, which I don't have any of those yet. And apparently I've got an inventory. Cool. Crude map to Ramswood. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and log out here because I don't have any knowledge of how to play monster play, but that is how you go about getting into your monster character selection and creating one right off the bat. Awesome. So let's get rid of that and come on back here. Oh, the other thing, Little Red had mentioned class trait points, which are now awarded as you level instead of partially as you level and partially through other means. And so it is a fairly linear thing. It looks pretty much like this. This is just the table pulled off of the class trait point page on the wiki. And just what level are you and how many points do you have available. And as we can see, it's pretty linear. It's not every level, but it is roughly proportional to your level. So we can see with 140 levels, you're going to be getting access to 98 class trait points. And there's a pretty linear increase as you go from levels 2 through 140 to get there. There are little clumps in here that feel very much like they correspond to expansions. So there's this clump here in, where are we? Late 50s to early mid 60s that feels very much like it corresponds to the Siege of Mirkwood expansion, where maybe you're getting one each level. So if we come on in here, we can see 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, then 66, and then we go back to skipping some levels. Whereas when you go from 65 to 75 for the Rise of Isengard expansion, maybe it's a little bit more drawn out. And again in here, 95 to 100 looks like it's a little bit more squished, and that feels like it corresponds to the Western Gondor, for instance. Anyway, I thought that was interesting to see it graphed out like this. I didn't know what to expect. I hadn't really looked at it since they had redone how you get these things. So roughly linear to you leveling up. I think that's actually really kind to those of us with alts, because getting all of the class trait points for each of your alts can be a little bit of a drag if you're not really interested in playing them full time. Aaron Bard says, how did that used to work? It used to work as a mixture of some of the class trait points coming from leveling and some of them from completing your class deeds. So if we come into class deeds tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, each of these would have rewarded a class trait point once you complete each of the 3 parts of that, and then a few others as well. In fact, there was a very handy plugin that would track along. Actually, do I still have that installed? I probably do. Let's see if I can pull that up. Nope. System plugin, and that would be the class trait point checklist. Oh, haha. Hang on. I moved that plugin away. I gotta put it back. There we go. And it looks like I'm going to need turbine files as well. Okay, so here, class trait points checklist is showing how you used to be getting these. So same thing, a lot of them came from just leveling through the world, and many of them came from other things. So the first 8 alternate ones came from completing those class deeds. So if you didn't really play your character or didn't try some of the things, you just wouldn't get those class trait points as a reflection of you delving into all of the stuff. Also completing some of these other ones, Melodies of the Valar, for instance, and Rising Chord, Valor's Marches. Some of those correspond to finding those pages from those level 45 class quests. Completing the Mines of Moria, and so on. So each one of these alternate ones. And I assume the promotion point deeds either don't exist anymore, or yeah, they may not exist or may not be awardable. Where are those? Class race epic, class at the bottom. Yeah, so either I haven't started them or we're not getting them. Maybe they're just not available because we're on a legendary server here. Anyhow, so Aaron Bard, it never had to do anything with good or bad choices, you ask. Well, I guess it depends. So it depends on how you look at it. But in general, if you have a character and you try all of their things and you play them, try all the different things they can do, you're going to see these deeds pop up. And it's on you whether or not you want to finish them off. And so if you have a minstrel who never does any healing, you just wouldn't complete some of those deeds and you wouldn't get access to some of those class trait points. So yeah, if maybe that's a quote-unquote a bad choice for a healer class to never do any healing. I mean, it's up to you. but they were rewards for exploring your class a little bit more fully than you might otherwise. Because some people are very comfortable just using the first 3 skills that they get that do damage, and just, that's fine. And that's a legitimate way to play. But if you wanted to fully get all of the things that your character had available, that involved using a lot of different things that your character had available. Aaron Bart says, I'm conflating virtue points and deed points. Well, the class trait points came from that. Absolutely. The virtue traits used to be also different, and these used to be awarded from completing things like Slayer deeds. But the deeds, instead of, let me come over here, instead of awarding virtue experience that could be applied to any of these that you want, a deed would have a specific thing, like exploring the old forest might give +1 to compassion. And so if you were looking at scaling up specific virtues, you would kind of have to seek out specific deeds to do that. So yeah, if you wanted to be more valorous, there were specific deeds you would have to go seek out to increase your valor. And if you were a generalist, then you just didn't care what was increased, you want them all! Or if you're a completionist, you'll eventually get them all, so don't worry about it. But yeah, the new system is a lot more flexible, a lot more customizable. And if you see any holdover things in, for instance, the wiki about, oh, this increased your valor, that's usually what it is. Now, we still do have a few things like the Virtuous Hobbit, which gives pluses to specific virtues, and that feels similar, feels like it came out of that old system where you didn't have this flexibility, and being able to bump up specific things was very helpful because you might not have any deeds available to you that would increase empathy because, you know, that's off in the North Downs and you're in the Shire. Cool. Oh, good point. Egg Arthur points out there are some items, even now in the game, that are virtue gated. I actually saw that with one of my alts, or one of Little Redhead's alts. I was trying to gear up through the auction house, and there was some stuff in there that was like, you have to be level 4, whatever this virtue is. I'm like, oh, well, that's not the case, so I guess I can't use you. Very sad. Okay, so, available trait points. I close you. Awesome. And we are off. So, in case I missed it, as always, do feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions, as several of you already are. Excellent. Oh, my poor inventory. I need to empty out all those things. Oh, by the way, we are in the last less than 24 hours for this Legendary Items reward track. These go about 3 months, and this one is ending, so do make sure you claim any unclaimed boxes. Unfortunately, there is currently no claim all button, so just go through and claim them all. I do make use of this shortcut bar here at the bottom to, you know, claim, and then skip, claim, skip, instead of trying to be a little precise with the drag bar. So maybe that will help as well. But yeah, do make sure you get those. All right. I see a question from Ajax. I see a question from Little Redhead. Okay, Little Redhead said, if a person was playing a red line minstrel, and I think that's an excellent choice, what might you suggest for Word of Craft and Word of Mastery? So I would suggest, based off of the fact that I am only level 75, so let's see. And I'll have to remember which one of these are which. All right. That is Words of Mastery. Okay, so all of the class ones are Words of Mastery, and then Words of Craft are the ones at the very bottom. So, at level 75 or below, I have Piercing Cry damage, I have Anthem of War and Prowess damage buffs, and Minor Ballad damage. I'm just going to pull these off so they can be on screen while I'm looking at this other question from Ajax. and Ascendant Light. And there's a couple possibilities for that word of craft. But really the key is making sure they match, so you get that plus 15% light type damage bonus. Because as a minstrel, pretty much everything you do is light based. And so you're really going to want to get that going as soon as possible. And then for the other one, I've got Cry of the Chorus cooldown, Anthem duration, and those are more utility ones. They're just making my life a little bit easier. Hammerhead skills, bubble, magnitude. Wow, that's only 40? I gotta make a note on that. That seems like a bug. Hammer hand skills magnitude is only 40! Exclamation point. Don't know how that happened. And Ascendant Light. You can see most of these are at the tier 3 or 4, but that's a holdout. Okay, so yeah, Cry of the Chorus, Anthem duration, both very utility-oriented. Hammer hand skill, bubbles, those are those bubbles that you can put on yourself or others. And getting that magnitude up by 36% just makes a big difference. And the other, Ascendant Light. Okay, so I am curious about... Do I have hammer hand? Nope, I don't. Well, that's why I haven't upgraded already. I don't have a better one in storage yet. I have to go get one of those. Okay, so leaving that on screen for a second. Brad said, seems like an interesting mechanic virtue gating given the lore/values of Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I think that's why they did it. Like, oh, this is a, a weapon that comes down from the ages, and you must have courage level 5, or a significantly high enough courage or honor or whatever in order to fully wield it or usefully wield it. I mean, you could have your own headcanons about why always conflate Pippin with Merry. Pippin, I believe. Why I fear I will have gotten them backwards. But why Pippin was able to stab the Lich King with the sword on the battle, yes, right place, right time, but also had grown enough as a hobbit to be able to effectively wield this ancient and terrible weapon. Okay, Ajax, the Mini. Anyone in chat have any recommendations on resources to use if you're returning to the game after about 7 years of play? I feel like it's a new game to me. Planning on starting new characters, if anything will help. Ignore if this is a derail. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a derail. It's on target. Little Redhead has answered, I would do some Slayer deeds in the low-level areas to get you some LOTRO points, which will let you buy some quality-of-life stuff from the LOTRO store in-game. Awesome suggestion. Something you may have noticed already, Ajax, in just a moment. Something you may have noticed already is if you go to create a character, you will be asked which introduction you want to go through. Let me pop that open here, actually. And so there is let's see. There's the one that has been the normal introduction for quite a while. And then if you had the Before the Shadow expansion as being advertised on screen here, then you will also have access to that. So let's come into new character. Obviously, I want it to be a female hobbit minstrel. And right here, starting tutorial, we have Shadows of Angmar. That's the traditional tutorial, which for Hobbit and men involves being in and around Archet, and working with Aragorn and Amdir. But you can change that. You can skip the tutorial and just start wherever, or you can go through the Before the Shadows. And it's going to pop up a little thing here because I don't have Before the Shadows. So, hey, you can get Before the Shadows. But over on my main, I do have that, and so that is a new area that beyond just the tutorial also has new content for levels 1 through 30. So it's pretty new for everyone, not just for you. Oh, and Otholos is paying more attention to my inventory than I am. I'll get to that in just a second. So Ajax, if you if you don't have the Before the Shadow mini expansion that came out recently, don't worry about it. But I would encourage you to make a new character, go through the Shadows of Angmar tutorial, don't skip it, And depending on your play style, some of these are definitely easier in the first couple of levels to do. For instance, Brawler, which is a newer one and has a little coin because it is an unlocked class. Brawler, I hear, is very punchy and pretty easy to do at low levels. Whereas Minstrels can be a little bit more finicky, especially at low levels. They don't have they can only wear light armor, and it takes a few levels before they really build up to their full power. And Wardens just have their whole gambit system that can be complicated. So pick a class that suits your interests, but be aware that some of these pay attention to that class difficulty advanced. If you're looking for a gentler introduction, choosing something like a Hunter or a Guardian is going to give you a lot more survivability. Oh, you were thinking of Bjorning. Awesome. Yeah, Bjornings are also have a lot of survivability. You don't have to focus as much on, oh no, I'm dying, and you can focus more on getting back into the game, both from a lore perspective and a controls perspective. How do I move? How do I attack? How do I do all these things? Okay, we'll go ahead and pop out of here. And Anophelos, let's check on that. Hey look, Hammerhand Skills Bubble Magnitude. I do have that. It's a recent acquisition, and it's a good thing too. Alright, so Hammerhand Skills Bubble, that was a 40. Skills Bubble Magnitude, and bloop. Nice catch. Little Redhead asked Ajax, do you prefer melee or ranged? Ajax said, I really like the Bjorning style, melee mostly. Neat thing about Bjornings, which you probably already know, is they can be very flexible. So you can be a DPS, a melee DPS. You can also be a healer for a group. You can also be a tank for a group. There's a lot of flexibility in role. But it will always be pretty much melee. They can chuck a beehive at your target, but beyond that, you're going up and you're clawing them in the face. Okay, sounds like Little Redhead has gotten what they wanted from these traceries. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down here in just a moment. All right, cool. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, come back into the plugin manager, make sure that class trait checklist is unloaded, and then scooch those out so that my plugin directory only has the stuff I'm working on. Okay. I think I'm caught up in chat here. Awesome. And Ajax, don't worry about feeling like you are derailing things. I'm going to be working on plugin development here, but I'm happy to field questions about LOTRO in general. It's totally fine. If it's about plugins, all the better, but it doesn't have to be. Cool. Okay. So let's come on in to our source code here. So I'm still using Visual Studio Code for editing the Lua files, and I am using the LOTRO API extension that you can find on the marketplace. This is by community member Lunar Water, and it is great. It adds IntelliSense for all of the LOTRO specific things. I am also using the fork utility for our source control, and that's hard to search for, but if you go to fork.dev, you can download this free tool yourself. Okay, and we have some do file changes here. I'm going to go ahead and just commit those to do file changes and commit that. And we can see an extra new line snuck in while I was playing around with something. So I'm just going to get rid of that, and we have back to a clean working directory. So it's going to be very easy to tell what's changed and what's going on. All right. So to do, when I was logging in earlier, I noticed, Wow, we got a lot of motes here. Let's go ahead and load a plugin. I noticed that when I was loading the Deed Tracker plugin, I was getting a lot of messages saying category lookup failure. And I wanted to look up why that was happening. So what I would like to do is kind of figure out where is that coming from and why is that coming from. So I guess the first thing is, I am curious, are these actually not present? So we're going to come on in to our data files and take a look at that. Whoopsie. Not that. Oh, I gotta remember how these things are structured. So we're looking for indices to deed. And so if we come into deed info and we expand skirmishes, and come on down here to skirmish lieutenant, we can see a 1, 2, well, all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we're getting failures on just about everything. And that seems suspiciously wrong. So all of those, it's saying lookup failure. Doesn't seem right. And if I come to another tab, we're seeing lookup failures as well. So I'm wondering if there's a logic inversion that it's just spitting that out when there isn't a lookup failure. So let's come take a look at that. This is get deed or category. We're going to go ahead and just copy from in there and do a search. Find that for me. And we can see there's the entry in the to-do file that says there's a problem here. There is in main win a call to it, but let's actually go to the function definition itself. Fantastic. Well, we can immediately see that there's a squiggly line here saying if deed lookup equals nil. And that squiggly line is IntelliSense's way of telling us that we're using an undefined variable, and wouldn't it be great if we defined it? But what it also tells us is that undefined variables have a default of nil, or are going to be equally comparable to nil. And yeah, so we're getting a lookup failure all the time, regardless of whether there was actually a lookup failure. Exactly what the problem is. So if we look at this, hey, undefined variable deed lookup. And that's because I copy pasted this from a different function that got deleted and didn't even think about renaming that like so. So instead of referring to something that doesn't exist, let's refer to item, which definitely does exist. Now, there's a lot of large files in the Deed Tracker plugin, and so it can take it a little while to kind of re-parse the syntax, and so this is why it still has that squiggly. It's still showing the deed lookup issue, and now it's caught up. So we're going to go ahead and unload and reload the plugin. And we can see it's fine. We're back to normal, no problem. If I pop around to various tabs, I do not see a bunch of error messages. Awesome. So I was hoping that was going to be a pretty fast thing. The Deed Tracker seemed to be working. It was just spitting out a bunch of error messages. And when that happens, sometimes it's just like, oh, is the check for why we're putting out the error message wrong for some reason? In this case, copy-paste failure. I was moving fast and was not refactoring correctly. Let's go ahead and take a snapshot, do a commit of this. Fixed variable name. And we can remove that from our to-do file as well. Fantastic. So, one bug down, and it was only a bug in the sense that it was annoying me. It wouldn't have broken anyone's functionality. Alright, the banner of bug fixing, done. Okay, so a thing that has plagued us for a long time is that there was a minimum level field, and like a fool, I repurposed that when it was time to talk about cap level deeds, deeds where you have to be the maximum level of the server. I just said, well, heck, then the minimum level of the deed is cap. You know, whatever the cap level of the server is, that's it. And then I started playing on legendary servers, where the level cap could actually be lower than when that deed was first introduced. Classic example over here on Treebeard was the perfect fellowship over in the Inn of the Forsaken for Shadows of Angmar. The perfect fellowship has a minimum level of something that I was not for a long time. So even though it's part of the Shadows of Angmar instance cluster, I'm guessing that instance was released later on when the minimum level of things was higher. And so what we want to do is, for those deeds that are cap level, I've already altered the data files, but I haven't gone through and altered the logic to care about such things. And what we need is a deed that qualifies, possibly two deeds that qualify. So the perfect fellowship, it would be nice to know what the minimum level of that is. Let me see if I can pull it up real fast. That's exciting. I was disconnected and reconnected to chat, so hopefully people can still see and hear me. Okay, so perfect fellowship, and hey, Weirwilla, if you're listening, it's got a minimum level of 70, so we could go in and get that done. Actually, I gotta ask. Inn of the Forsaken. What happens if I just wander in there since I've finished the quest version of that? Alright, new quest. Alright, deed's been bestowed. Complete the quest, challenge the perfect fellowship. Could have sworn that I had. Look at that. Challenge the perfect fellowship. Quest is completed. I almost feel like I should submit a ticket for that, because I have completed the quest. Oh well. Alright, well that's not a today problem. Oh, oops. I was wondering why my client was not responding, and it's because it's going from completed quests back to uncompleted quests. Okay, we're going to go ahead and leave this. Alright, another question from Little Redhead. Another quick mini LI question, Minstrel Legendary Item question. What are your top two, Heraldic, Tracery, and Word of Power on your book specifically? Fun question. Let's pull those up. Well, for my weapon, Word of Power is area effect attack damage, because I love me some area effect stuff. The Heraldry is Eagle. And for the book, which is what you actually asked for, also Heraldry of the Eagle, and single target attack damage. And I am cognizant that with my playstyle, I might do better with an area effect critical rating, but what I'm really hoping for is just to be able to add in the crits as well. Wizik in chat asks an excellent question. Are there any plugins for legendary servers to visually let you know when the eye is on you? Sort of like the red box is up, you're about to get stomped. What a great question. There are some plugins that would let you configure such a thing. The first one that comes to mind is buff bars. You could probably configure a bar just for Eye of Sauron stuff. And then you would get some sort of pop-up that says this is happening and you still have it or whatever. Buff Monitor could probably also show it to you, but for me, I like using that just for the positive buffs. But I don't use buff monitor to its full extension. You could have multiple windows for buff monitor, and that could be a thing there. And I know Prime has a lot of customizations in some of its alerting systems, but I haven't played around with that at all. So I don't think that, to my knowledge, there's no plugin specifically for Eye of Sauron stuff, but there are plugins that pay attention to the effects on you and will alert you in various ways that are worth looking into. So let's see, where is my browser? Hey, cat. What's up, Casper? Oh, he's behind me. Let's see. Where are you, cat? Yeah, well. Being blocked by my body. Alright, so Prime has a lot of stuff that you can do in it, and then there's also buff bars, which a lot of people like to use. And so you could get an effect slider like this that shows you, and there are other things you can do. There's a lot of stuff. I have barely played with it. So that's buff bars, that's Prime, and then is alerter? Alert. And then so there's also this one, which is alerts by LOTRO alerts by Garen, which might be configurable in a way that you could just have big text that says, "Hey, watch out." Agartha says, "I don't remember, is that a chat message that comes up when you get the Eye of Sauron?" I think the answer is no. I think it's effect driven only, and once you have the effect, then I think you can have the red square hit below you, but I don't think it's an automatic thing. I think once you have the eye, then you can trigger the box of explosion. Maybe. It's something that I will say, Wizik, being on Treebeard and not having plugin assist on that has made me very attentive to boxes on the ground. So except when I'm at places where the red box is just visually hard to make out, like if it was on this red rock here, it would just be hard to tell that it's present. But in most biomes, the red box is pretty visible, and I've just gotten very, very attentive to it being present and moving. So, okay, Agartha says alerter slash Gnout won't help. Then they are purely chat message based. Then I would look at buff bars, and I would look into some of the various things that Prime has, because there's a bunch of things in Prime that I haven't even looked at. I've mostly just played around with Prime bags. So, yeah, you could take this as an opportunity to just get really attentive to boxes being underneath you and just moving. But I totally get the desire to have that heads-up information and offload some of that cognitive work onto a plugin. So no plugin shaming here, but not having a plugin and those red boxes of explosion have definitely made me better at seeing and moving out of those red boxes. Now, it's a downside because sometimes I'm playing with a class that does buffing, like Lore Master or Captains, and they'll put something down and I run out of it because it's a box on the ground. And I don't stand those. And so it's like, oh, that's probably not ideal. It wasn't a red box, but it could be bad. So probably not ideal. Maybe a plugin saying run would be better. Yeah. Okay. I think I got news that Little Redhead has paid attention to these traceries. I'm going to go ahead and probably close them on down here. As we can see, so I play a minstrel, and with the legendary items, it is very helpful to have legendary items that are built up for your healing versus your DPS. And so these were, of course, the red line damage ones, and the ones I use for healing are where I try to, if I'm going to have really good traceries, that's where I try to put them. So that's where my tier 4 Hildred the Owl is, or my skill induction speed, or my bolster courage healing. Like that's where I'm spending those. And then the having fun blowing things up versions just get whatever's left. They get the remnants. But I think at this point, one of the neat things about being on Treebeard and playing slowly is that I have been able to get the highest tier things into each of these slots, these traceries. Let's see. So, oh, no, it looks like I still have at least one more to do. Where's this bit of healing? Yeah, so it's very nice to get to a point where like, oh, okay, I do have the time and the ancient script accumulation and the cracked or shattered symbol acquisition to actually get here. And I have a feeling that's what it's probably going to be like when we get to end game on any particular server, where the rewards from the LI reward track and in-game play are just enough to be able to max out the enhancement level of each of these tracery slots and the tracery tiers and so on. Okay. Cool. So, the Perfect Fellowship Deed has had a minimum level of 70, and you must also be at the server cap. And so, in the theory that you're always at least level 70, I use the shortcut that, okay, regardless of what the minimum level of that actually is, we're just going to say it's cap level because, if the server lets you be level 100, you got to be level 100 to do the thing. Okay, cool. But on legendary servers, it doesn't work. And so what I want to do is, when I'm over here on a legendary server, and let's say the current cap is 50, then I want the Perfect Fellowship to be not available. I want it to look like these, Woe of the Willows, with minimum level 125. Wagner in chat says, oh, but I'm not sure what that's in response to. You were asking about PVMP, or PvP, Wagner, on Little Redhead stream. If you were present at the beginning of my stream, you saw that I showed how to switch from Free Peoples to Monster Play at the character selection screen. If that would be useful to see again, just let me know. Okay, so this is what we want to see. We want to see this minimum level 70 pop up for the Perfect Fellowship. And so that's the goal, is have the logic actually pay attention to this. Wagner says, what language do you use for front and back? I feel like you're asking front end and back end as in UI and code. If that's the question, well, plugins in Lord of the Rings Online are always done in Lua. And LOTRO exposes an API that you use in Lua to pop up windows and buttons and that kind of thing. So this is a window that was created in Lua code, and the labels and the checkboxes and the buttons were all also done in Lua. So you say, hey LOTRO, I want to create a button, and it creates a button. So we're going to come on in to the code here, and the first thing we're going to do is search for cap. And this was my shorthand for the deed is, its minimum level is cap. Ajax asks, any chance the code can search in-game the max level within the game, even as it was the minimum within current players on the server? So DTracker could do an extra thing that it doesn't currently, but DTracker currently has a customizable what is the current level cap, and whenever I put out a new release of DTracker, I do bump these to whatever the minimum level is for legendary and standard servers. Aha, it's standard server in my plugin. Aha. That discussion was had last stream. So I do tweak those values. But what we could do and what we don't do is that if you had a character that was a higher level than this cap, we should probably change the cap, right? Like, oh, you're level 141, I guess the cap isn't 140. So let me actually come down and add that as a feature. Let's see, features. If the current character level is higher than the server cap, raise the server cap. Pay attention to this is a legendary server flag. Cool. Fighter says, I used to work on legacy code. Is that normal with you? One of the things that I appreciate about playing around in the Lord of the Rings Online plugin ecosystem is a lot of times I am looking at something that's been around for 10 years and trying to figure out how it works, why it works, so I can fix it or tweak some little thing. For instance, I have had a lot of fun adding some features to the Festival Buddy plugin. And in order to do that, you have to figure out how the thing currently works, if it's working the way it's supposed to or not, and then go and make modifications. And so you do get to exercise that skill of reading someone else's code, making changes to someone else's code in as minimal way as you can, because you'd like your patch to only touch the files that it has to. And so it's also the case where I've come and looked at code that I wrote 2 years ago, and now I'm looking at it again, so it feels a little legacy to me, because, yeah, technically I'm the one who wrote it, but I don't necessarily remember that. It just asks, can you transfer a character who is beyond the max level of the legacy server? So, the legendary servers, in general, you cannot transfer from them to a standard server, with the exception being that the current life cycle of a legendary server is to get to what the level cap of standard servers and then come to an end, and then you can transfer off from there onto other servers. And so Shadowfax will, I think, sometime this year catch up to standard servers, and will go through that process just like Anor before it, where people will go ahead and transfer off. But in general, there is no transferring from standard servers to legendary servers, so the question of what would happen if your character was too high level doesn't come into play, because you're only transferring from servers with equal level caps. The exception to that exception is that when Ithil shut down, because there didn't seem to be a large enough player base to justify it and Anor staying open. They were both legendary servers. When Ithil shut down, I believe it was not yet at standard level, but people could still transfer over to standard servers. But you were still at a smaller than level cap going to a larger level cap, and so, again, not an issue. Okay. Little Redhead also answering that in chat. It can't transfer to a legendary server. That is very important and good to know. Fagner asks, do you have documentation? We do have documentation for the LOTRO API. Sometimes it's a little scant, but it looks like this, and you can find it over on the... let's see, do I have a shortcut to that? Yes. So, over on the LOTRO interface .com wiki, Megan in chat seems to be waving hello. Over on the wiki, we have this here. Let me save that off for the YouTube side of things. And in here, and I just prefer the look of over here on the left, we have all of the namespaces that we have access to. So for instance, if I wanted to make a button appear on the screen, I would go to turbine.ui.lotro, and I'd be looking at a button, and I'd want to instantiate that. Some of these have sample code to them. For instance, the turbine.ui button code. You can see a lot of example codes here. And one of the nice things about plugins for LOTRO in general is that they're all human readable. So if you see a plugin that does a cool thing and you're like, how does that plugin do that? You can always read through the source and kind of say, oh, that's how you create a button. That's how you make a window. That's how you look at chat. That's how you can tell where you are, kind of. All of these different things. Okay. There's kin chat happening. Excellent. So if we search for CAP in quotes, then we see a get deed minimum level. And we can see, let's just read through this. So the minimum level of deed is 0, but if there is a min level thing present, then either it is cap, in which case we return the current level cap, or it is the actual thing that we assume is going to be a number. Wagner says, now I have questions about Lord of the Rings. Shoot, I know some things about Lord of the Rings. Playing Lord of the Rings online has helped stick some things of the lore into my head, especially the geography of it. Oh, excellent point by Agartha. Hang on a sec. So if you're interested in writing plugins for Lord of the Rings Online, I highly recommend checking out Garen's writing. Oh, why is that? My thing always jumps to somewhere in there. So anyway, writing LOTRO Lua plugins for noobs. Highly recommended that you check that out. It's got lots of practical examples. And answers a lot of questions preemptively. So, yeah, being in the world and be able to like move a character through the world has been really helpful in kind of getting that sense of, oh, here's the Blue Mountains or Ered Luin. Here's the Shire. Here's how it connects to Breland. You know, when the hobbits are running from Farmer Maggot, why are they taking the ferry? What does it mean for the riders to have to go around to the bridge? All these little things. You know, how does the Old Forest connect to the Barrow Downs to connect to Breland and on to Weathertop? So good. And so the fact that the developers have tried to pay a lot of attention to the lore that is available to them to use has been really neat. And of course, they've gone above and beyond, because if you're in an MMO, you need things to attack, you need lieutenants of things to attack, and so they're able to create the Kargul, the red wraiths, off of the that idea of the Nazgul, the black wraiths, and bring something new into the game that feels organic, right? It feels like you should have these lesser spirits that accompany the Nazgul around. Ajax says, oh, this map, I remember when Mordor was coming soon. Yeah, Mordor is available in the game. And so a lot of the map has been fleshed out. Eriador, of course, has been fleshed out. And just recently, with the Before the Shadow expansion, we have Swanfleet and Cardolan, which are areas to the south of the Lonelands and the Trollshaws to the west of Eregion and Ennevaith. And a lot more of the map has been filled out, and you can now take that North Road from Dunland all the way through Ennevaith, past Tharbad, through Cardolan, up into Breland. It's very cool. Where before you just got to the very southern end of Breland, it's like, nope, no more. So, Erenbart, where they're fairly close in developing the map feels very close to a lot of the more authoritative sources, but they, they have to flesh it out in a way that Tolkien never did. Tolkien didn't specify, oh, there's a big rock here, there's a tree, there's a shrub, there's a whatever. So they're at the local level, they're making it all up, right? But the things are in the right place. Like Breeland is in the right place compared to Weathertop, compared to Rivendell. But the specifics of what the Trollshaws look like, they're drawing from descriptions of scenery in the book. But the location of Akkad Candleth, and this river here, and then there's a road over here. No, that's things that the developers have made up, trying to be faithful to the description if there's no specific description available. Oh, Adex says the Yondershire. Yes, Yondershire is also new, and Yondershire now connects the Shire to Ered Luin. Before, in the Shire, if you went up to Needlehole, there was just a portal that portaled you across to Ered Luin, and now you can instead go on into Yondershire and actually walk all the way over to Ered Luin, but also explore a bunch of other things as well. Ajax says, oof, I remember avoiding Dunland. I enjoy Dunland. I enjoy the storyline of Dunland, but I appreciate it's not for everyone. You don't have to do Dunland, but there's some pretty cool cooking recipes if you do Dunland. Aaron Bart says, in terms of scale, is the Shire-sized? So there is a concession with Lord of the Rings Online, which is, in general, most players do not want to spend 8 actual real-time hours traveling from Mickle Delving to Breetown on a horse. And so there's a big compression of distances in the game. There's a line, I know it's in the movie, I can't remember if it's in the book, when the hobbits have crossed over with the ferry, the Bucklebury ferry, leaving the Nazgul on the western bank. And in the movies they say it's whatever distance to the bridge. And I believe something like that happens in the book as well, but I would have to find the quote. And so you can get a sense of, okay, well, in-game, the amount of time it takes to go from ferry to bridge is about 30 seconds on a horse. But it's going to take the Nazgul several hours. And so you have this compression of scale that lets you traverse across the entire Shire in a matter of minutes, what would normally take a hobbit with a walking stick days, right? And so it feels proportionate, except that everything, due to it being an MMO and being player-driven, and most players just don't want to have real-time travel distances of, okay, get on a horse, and I'm going to go to the library and come back in a couple hours, and I will have made it from Waymeet to Frogmorton. That's just not what most people are looking for. So, with the concession that everything is kind of squished up in so that you can converse it fast, it feels like it's reasonably Shire-shaped and sized. Especially if you compare the Shire, which is pretty easy to move around in, pretty fast to move around in, to some larger places like Dunland, or as you're getting over to Rohan and traversing across the East Fold and the West Fold, or down into Gondor with some of these places where it just feels like it takes a lot longer to get between places. Yes, Little Redhead points out that in the game you can, during chicken session play, run all the way to Mordor if you so desire, and yeah, that just doesn't seem very realistic for an actual chicken in Middle Earth. Jack says, I thought a feature of this game was customizing a mount. Why not make us ride for hours? They do make you ride for hours, well, encourage you to ride for hours when you get to Rohan. It certainly will speed up the gameplay. But not because of just getting from point A to point B, just because it's such a large space, and you're going to get from one city to another a lot faster if you get on that war mount. Unfortunately, until you get, well, I don't know about unfortunately, in the game, good or bad, the mounts that you get before your war mounts are specialized, customized by choosing different mounts, and so there's a lot of different looks to them, and so that's what you're customizing. Once you get access to your war mounts, you can then customize them, the things that they are wearing. Absolutely. Unfortunately, I don't have access to war mount yet, so I can't show you that. But I have been picking up cosmetics for the war mount for when we get that next expansion. Okay. Awesome questions. Thank you. So, yes, we have API documentation that tells us how to interact with Turbine, and we have a version of Lua 5.1 without all the bits in it that let you do things that they don't want you to do. You can't access arbitrary websites or do network traffic or access arbitrary files on the computer, that kind of thing. Aaron Bart says, can you have different breeds of war mounts or one per character? I believe in general you have one war mount, but that war mount you can change the cosmetic look of. So, in a way, you kind of have one horse or one goat that you change the looks of by mounting a different version of it in this mounts thing. So, you know, the Eriador pony and the Festive Azure pony, they're kind of the same horse. They just look different, right? It's a cosmetic difference, but they move the same speed, have the same health, probably. And so your war mount, because once you get your war mount, you're customizing it with skills and traits. I think it would be probably not worth it to be swapping out entire mounts, but instead you get to dress it up cosmetically. Oh, I want it to have blue stuff or red stuff or mix and match, that kind of thing. But I will say, I underplay the war mounts when I'm playing as a minstrel. When I was playing as a hunter, war mounts were the best, right? They really played into the hunter range damage. And then it felt like when I was playing on a war mount with my minstrel, that I was giving up some of the really awesome minstrel abilities for the mobility of a war mount. And it just didn't pay off in quite the same way. So I haven't spent as much time on a war mount for a minstrel as I have for a hunter. And that was a while ago. Ajax says, I remember that so vividly, running down war bands. Did they ever introduce a war goat? They have introduced boars. And I don't know if you can get one in war mount version, but we do have boars for riding purposes. Let's go ahead and get one of those up. So, it's not a war boar as far as war mounts go, but it is something. It's not my personal preference. For one thing, hobbits are proportioned such that when a hobbit is sitting on a war boar, especially in a robe, it looks a little odd for me. Let's see, I've got 3 of those things. Alright, that one's got less armor. And then the Fateful Thunderboar. Oh, and this one makes sparks shoot up when it walks. It's got those iron shod hooves. Cool. And I just have to figure out what my actual mount is. So, yes, you can ride lots of boars and goats, but I think right now, thematically, you get your war mount from Rohan, and they're only interested in trading horse-like things. They don't train goats or boars in Rohan. Let's see. I feel like some of these should be warlike, though. Yeah, Elder Slade Battle Goat. Like I would pay LOTRO points to be able to equip my war mount with this look. I'm on board with that. Okay. There's a boar that leaves fire on the ground. I think Little Redhead was pointing out the one that I found. Doesn't the Aaron Bart asked if they cause thunder too? Not that I know of, but I haven't ridden them very much. I mostly, I pick a goat when I go into Moria, and I stick with it. So my goat for Moria is the honey goat on this character, it looks like. It kind of feels like it glows a little bit with all those yellows, and it's really good for being underground in Moria. Plus, I just like it. I mean, look at the embroidery on that back pouch. It's pretty cool. Okay. Neat. So we have a function, get deed minimum level, which is to say, if the thing said cap, which it used to, doesn't anymore, so this part will never happen, then get that current level cap. But it feels like we need, in this plugin functions, we need a isDeed cap or something. So function isDeed cap level deed. And then here we can pay attention to that. Let's see. Remember it says the one that Little Redhead called out with the outhouse earlier is my Moria coat. Excellent. Ajax says solid choice. Okay, apparently Agartha says Faithful Thunderboard does have thunder sounds. I guess it would help if my in-game sound was a little higher up. Also, do I have music going? I don't. Yeah, okay. I hear the thundery. I hear that. That's nice. Cool. Cool, thanks for pointing that out. I want to attribute the sound to those iron shod hooves and leave it at that. Okay, let's figure out what it looks like now for a deed to be cap level. So I'm just going to go ahead and search around. We got a lot of capped in. I'm going to search for quotes here. Nope. And then I'm going to search for maybe is cap. There we go. So we're looking for something called is cap. And if is cap is present and true, then it is cap level. So we can sort of walk our way through that. Local is cap equals false. If d dot is cap, then is cap equals true, and return is cap. But we're just writing ourselves a very convoluted statement here, because what we really care about is deed is cap. We want this to be a Boolean. What's that? Yeah, no. We want this to be a Boolean result, but really all we care about is deed is cap. So if we wanted to expand this into a little bit simpler of a thing, we could say local is cap equals d dot is cap does not equal nil, and d dot is cap equals true. And this would explicitly set our is cap to true or false instead of just setting it to something that is truthy, you know, nil or true. So we could expand it out like that. We could even just return is cap, and that still is something testable. But I worry about when you have a function that says is something, where we're expecting a Boolean, or at least I'm expecting a Boolean. I'm expecting that something that I can explicitly compare to true or false either way. I would generally compare it to be true, or just, you know, is this thing truthy? But I worry about returning something that might be nil or true instead of false or true. So, if not nil and it is true, then is cap is going to be true. Otherwise, it's false. Return is cap. Cool. So the real question is, what's calling this get deed minimum level? In fact, we can get rid of this cap thing. So it's never going to be cap. So just this. What was calling get deed minimum level, and what of those should care about is deed cap level? So we have a couple of functions here. First of all, in main window, minimum level equals get deed minimum level. Okay. How is that being used? All right. If level too high, okay. Just being used textually. Oh, Ajax asks a question. So Ajax, Lord of the Rings Online plugins don't have direct access to information about the in-game deeds. So what I've done instead is built up some files that have that information for us. So these are files that I provide with the deed tracker plugin that say for deed number this, here's information about it. You know, here the minimum level is whatever. It goes with this class. It's called Lore of the Blades. Here's the information about it. That kind of thing. And so these are extracted from information from the game. But the reason why we're checking for nil is the way I've encoded whether I think a deed is cap level or not, you know, usually challenge deeds, is I've added a thing, and this is a Lewis specific thing, is these are all table constructions. They're tables with entries that are either present or they're not. If they're not present, it's nil. And if they are present, they might be a value. And so in this case, almost all of them are not cap level deeds. So we're just checking to see, does this entry in the table exist? Is cap? And if it's there and if it's true, then it's a cap deed. Yeah, Ajax was thinking, I was looking at the game data. I cannot. And this is a thing about LOTRO plugins in general, is that they exist in a sandbox. And we only have access to things that the game lets us have access to. And so detailed information about quests and deeds and many other things are not currently available through the LOTRO API. So we make do. Oh man, I need to be able to mentor someone. Oh well, I'll have to do that later. Okay, so we have is deed cap level, which we want to use any place where get deed minimum level was caring about things. So back to the searching. Get deed minimum level was being used in main window, but only cosmetically. When we looked at min level, we saw it was only being used in level too high. Which makes us wonder why we're bothering to get it there and not later on. So, cool. In general, I'd like to put the initialization of variables and the declaration of them if I can. Declaring the variable and initializing the variable as close to using it as possible. In this case, if level too high is not true, we're never going to even call get deed minimum level now. So just one less thing to happen. Instead of calling it for every deed, even though we were going to use it for a few of them. Maybe. Depends on your level. Okay, so get deed minimum level. We now have a very safe call here because we can see it's only getting used visually. We have the declaration itself, and we have two other uses. One of them is in function get deed indices, and the other is in get deed skip info. Okay, so get deed indices. We should really document this function at some point. Given a deed name, return the IJK values for possible matches. At least I think that's what it does from my memory. We'll update that here in a minute if we need to. So we have a get deed minimum level. Why do we have this? Well, this is where we get to dig into code that was written possibly years ago and figure out what's going on. Okay. The minimum level equals get deed minimum level. Let's see how we're using it. All right, if minimum level is greater, all right, so we would want to pay attention to if it is cap in here, I think. Because this min level was going to get converted into the server cap implicitly by the other function call, and now you could definitely have the min level I feel like I'm going to need some more test data, but in the meantime, I would have the ability with the debug functionality to set my level to say level 73. And so in that case, the perfect fellowship should be available, except that it is also cap. So we want a couple of things. So if I set my level to 65, we can see perfect fellowship, minimum level 70. So it knows that part. But if I set to 70 and set level cap on the server to 75, set my level to 70, it thinks the perfect fellowship is available. And so, even in the main win, we're going to want this to pay attention, I think, for display. Because seeing, if I was back to 65, seeing this say minimum level 70, that's just not true, right? It is technically true, except that you have to be at server cap, and server cap jumped from 65 to 75. So you'd have to be 75. So when you're under it, minimum level 70, I think it would be nice for that to be 70/server cap. So we'll come back to that. Okay, to do. Update this set text to inform player about server cap level. Okay, and then these other ones. We also want to skip if deed is cap level and we are not. We need that. And then finally, over here at get deed skip info, same thing. Also skip if deed is server cap and we are not. I'd almost feel like there should be a function to encapsulate those ideas. Function is player cap level. And for that, we have the player's level. So card level equals my card get level. Oops. Then we just need to know what the cap level is. That's pretty doable. And we can go to our options for that. So we have a function called set server level cap. Excellent. We need a function for getting the server level cap based on if this is a legendary server or not. I don't know if this is the right place for these functions, but since set server level cap is already here, I'm just going to put get server level cap right next to it. All right, so we need the same thing. Is this a legendary server? And if is legendary server, then we're going to go ahead and do one thing. We could even stick it into an else for the other one, and then we're done. So server level cap. And a legendary server level cap. All right. Okay. Okay. So we have a function that will go ahead and check if this is a legendary server, and then based on whether it is or not, we're going to go ahead and get that legendary server level cap or regular server level cap and return it. Seems like a lot of effort. Looking at current level cap, maybe I've already done this for myself. Maybe, let's see, sets current level cap to the correct value based on whether this is a legendary server or not. Okay, so this is the basic functionality we want, except that's a lot of work to do for every deed. So instead, we're going to use this global current level cap, which starts with default server cap, which is 140. And this comment is funny, given that it kind of predates Treebeard in a way that, oh well. Okay, so current level cap, cool, we've got that, and we can use this value. Awesome. So what are we looking for? We've got the car level, we've got the server cap. Are they equal? Done. This could be a one-liner. I'm not a fan of trying to squish code down into unreadability just in the service of short code. So for me, this is much more readable, much more maintainable if I can see what's going on, instead of just writing return my car get level equals current level cap. Now, for some people, this is actually more readable, probably. But for me, it's just a little bit too much. Plus, it's complaining. No, okay. So for me, I like splitting it out a little bit. It also makes it much easier to throw in some debug statements, some turbine.shell.writeline statements with function state when something inevitably goes wrong. Now, it's easy enough to split things back out, but I like to change code as little as possible when I'm adding debug statements, because it's way too easy to either accidentally fix or accidentally break something while you're adding in a debug statement. Whereas here, there's a new line here. I can just write debug and write out the character level and the server cap level just to check things out. Whereas if you have a single line thing, you kind of inherently have to break it up. You have to change the thing that you're trying to find out more about. And in changing that thing, you can, break or fix it in a way you just don't realize. And, everything's fine. Well, no, the code you've transformed it into is fine, but that doesn't tell you a lot about the original code. All that being said, that's why this looks unnecessarily verbose to some people. So we have a function is character cap level. We have a function is deed cap level. If a deed is cap level and the character is also cap level, then we're in business. Otherwise, we're not. So do we have anything that's using is deed cap level? Not yet. But we do have our notes that we can follow. Okay. Actually, I want to go ahead and commit this get deed minimum level change. So we're going to stage that and stage this. Move variable initialization closer to use. It's a cosmetic change. Okay. Dick says, I'm off for now, but thank you again for your help. You're very welcome. I hope you enjoy yourself. I'll tune back in for future streams. Great. Well, we're here every Tuesday, and there's other streamers most days of the week. So have a great one. Okay. Now we're actually well into the second hour, depending on how you measure things, of this stream. So I may not be able to finish all of this tonight. We'll see how much energy and attention span I have. I've been having some weird sleeping schedules recently, and I was up at 5 o'clock this morning, which was good from an ill omen's perspective, but not great from a everything else perspective. Okay, so we have is deed cap level, we have is character cap level. These are getting added. Let's go ahead and commit these little comments we've added. Okay, that. Okay, so added a few function block comments. Great. So that gets us back down to these two comments here and this comment there. Perfect. So let's come on into plugin functions. Get deed minimum level. Okay. So we have the character level here. So we could just manually do the check, but I'd like to keep it in that function. All right, get deed indices. Else if, well, I've forgotten what we called them. We have is deed cap level. Okay. Is deed cap level and not is character cap level. Then we're going to go ahead and debug skipping deed because it is cap level and character is not. Alright, so we're getting current level cap is above character level car level. so we have a reasonable output that we can look at. Okay, so that's one of the two, and the other of the two is over here. Same thing, where we want to go ahead and do skip deeds. So we have hide deeds above level, hide deeds below level. So if something basically the same logic though. Is it server cap and we are not? And in that case, this is for get deed skip info. So we want skip deed equals true. Or do we? Oh, apparently deed is the wrong thing here. We should fix that. Current deed. Would be nice to have a consistent naming scheme there. Level 2 high equals true. Let's go ahead and do that. Because we know main window has a thing that's looking for level 2 high. So if we make use of that same thing, let's go ahead and not care about the character in here. If it's a cap issue, then this feels like a thing that needs to be in the strings. Let's come on in here to our strings file. Min level lang deeds min level. Sure. Server cap. So we're going to go ahead and get that translated for where whatever we have it localized for. That was server cap, and this is a format string. So what we want to do is go ahead and string dot format that and the server cap, which is current level cap. So we have a string format of that get string with the current level cap, and then we can go ahead and just use this because it's either empty or it is a string that has a space in there, so it fits either way. let's give that a try. IntelliSense is struggling to keep up with our rapid editing, but that's okay. All right, attempted to index a local D to nil value. Fantastic. Let's go figure out what's wrong with that. Okay, we need this function to just behave reasonably. If deed equals nil, then return false end. If it's not a deed, then it's not at cap level. Okay, there we go. So let's come on in to these settings, and we have the legendary cap. We're going to switch the level. Perfect fellowship, minimum level 70. Great. Let's come on in to make ourselves 70. Still not working right. Let's go ahead and get the ID for Perfect Fellowship so we can filter on that pretty easily. So we want Perfect Fellowship. Great, so we're looking for this ID. So what we want is if deed current deed dot ID equals this, then let's spit out some info. Debug checking deed Perfect Fellowship we're going to do a string.format here so that we can just concatenate in is deed cap level and is character cap level. Let's give that a try. Well, what's the format string for a Boolean? All right. Lua format string Boolean. All right. We can just throw a toString in there. Why not? Sometimes I wonder about some of these edge cases. All right, checking the perfect fellowship. Is deed cap level? False. Okay, there's our first problem. So let's figure out why are we seeing that. We have is cap equals true, so there's something wrong with our function. Is deed cap level? Let's go take a look. let's go ahead and add another check for the ID that we're caring about. I don't want to spam the output too much. And first, we're just going to dump out that D. That'll tell us we're in the right spot without caring too much. All right, another issue. Back to line 365. Current deed, again, not being consistent about how we're naming things about the current deed, and so copy pasting is just causing us problems. Okay. IsCap is true is coming in, so isCap equals not now, and deed isCap equals true. Apparently I hoisted myself by my own petard because this is just not being great. And if I did return d.isCap, I bet it would just be better. Is deed cap level? False. Okay, well, that's good. Alright, let's get a few more pieces of information into the debug. Is deed cap level false? So, deed is cap true, deed is cap equals true, true. What on earth? This is confusing. I don't like it when it's confusing. Is character cap level equals true? That's not looking at the right thing, for one thing. Awesome. So we have a function, is character cap level, which is going straight to the character and not that value that we're setting. So what we want to do is we want to come into the options and figure out where we're setting that level. Level changed. Excellent. RealType says in your list, it seems like it was level 70. Yes, there's a minimum level on the deed that is 70, and it also requires being server cap, which makes it a great place to test this. Okay, so we're storing the level temporarily in our character data table. And that is better because it allows us to fake out the level more fully. And so is character cap level. We want to use that instead of my character get level. In fact, we should find any place that uses that, because it's never going to be correct when we're playing around with that. Okay, there is this one other place. Let's go ahead and fix that while we're at it. But I don't think that really fixes the problem. But hey, a different problem. 373. Of course, I didn't have character name. Let's grab that character. Yeah. Okay, what do we have? Is D cap level false? Is character cap level false? But then our character is set to true, or rather the server level cap is being set to 75. So that part is there. But then we're still seeing weirdness. All right, so minimum level 70. Great. Is character cap level false? Okay, so we are seeing that updated now. If we see this go to 70, well, that's funny. Okay, 71, 75. Is character cap level is now misbehaving. Why? Alright, I'm not filtering this on a specific deed, so this might spit out a bunch of them. Like, I don't know. Okay, 65 to 75. 75. Okay, that is behaving as expected. And yet, we have the darndest thing here where the Perfect Fellowship is not updating the way I was expecting. If I set the level here, oh, that's so weird. Alright, well, the fact that is deed cap level is just being nonsensical here is not helping. Seeing is cap is true. No, I've got a hard-coded thing. Why on earth do I have that? Oh, the deed cap equals true is true. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I think this will be simpler if we just... Yeah, let's just dump the cap. There we go. Much simpler. So this catch of is deed cap level deed, I feel like it's swelling up too much. And so one thing I like doing is spitting out a stack trace to say, how did we get here? And for that, we'll just go into Turbine Engine, and we're looking for the get call stack method here. So if we go ahead and say, hey, if it's nil, then we wanted to go ahead and debug turbine.engine.getCallStack, because something's weird. This cap level called with nil deed. And tell me more. Fantastic. Lots of them, which means, yeah, maybe that's part of the problem. So we see the plugin functions. It's getting called from 1126 in main win. Let's look that up. Hey, deed's got a squiggly. That's not great. Killing me. But that would explain why the drawing update might not have been happening. Hey, is deed cap level false? Is character cap level true? Alright, progress is being made. Still not right. Alright, now we're in plugin function 764. So let's get back to plugin functions 764. Here we go. Current deed. Hey, look at that. Something named current deed. I bet I'm passing deed or nothing to is deed cap level. That would do it. Okay. Hey, is deed cap level true? Is character cap level true? Okay. Now we can play. Okay, so level 65, perfect fellowship, minimum level 70, server cap 75. That's a way to display this. If we go ahead and say 70 now, then it still says minimum level 70, server cap 75. I feel like the minimum level is no longer necessary. So let's go ahead and say for the main window, if deed cap level, then minimum level equals something like this. So min level string equals something. And so what we're going to do is that else min level string equals, I guess it's min level. Then we need min level string equals, and it's this thing. Okay, so we have min level string, and then cap string is going to be something similar. Let's come back to our strings. Min level string, minimum level, blah. Okay, we have min level string, we have cap string, string format, that, and then we will use either min level string or cap string. Well, we'll use them both, but only one of them will be active at a time. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. Or see how many errors I've made. Okay, coming back to 65. Cool, server cap 75. I don't like that space there. We're going to kill that. And let's go ahead and get that string formatting going here for minimum level as well. So min level string is going to be a string dot format with the get string and min level like that. Cool, let's take a look at that. Okay. Server cap, I feel like the minimum level is more important. Unfortunately, I didn't actually expand the functionality that's returning a bunch of things about the deed, hide deed, skip deed, level 2 high is kind of right, all that. I didn't actually expand this to return yet another thing. Seems like maybe I could. But there were, last time I checked, a number of places that call that function, and changing all of them to capture yet another variable was more than I was looking for right now. So what do we do about that? So what I want is if our level is too low for the deed, which is what the level 2 high was representing. Oh, hey, we already had a get level. Nice. Let's get that. Get a level. Okay, now we're not using that anymore. So, back to whatever we were doing before that. So, we have get level. And we can do a quick check. So, if get level of character, if that's the right name for it. I'm feeling something like current character, because again, it's not very consistent. All uppercase character. Yeah, get level character is less than deed dot. Get deed minimum level. Great. So we're backwards engineering this a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. Okay, so now we've got, if we've got level 2 high, which marks either we're below the deed level or the cap level, we can then check, are we below the deed level? Cool. Otherwise, we're probably below the cap level, and continue. Let's make sure that that logic works, and then we'll, I think, be ready to call it done for today. So I guess if you have any last minute thoughts, questions, concerns, go ahead and start getting them into chat now, and we'll get to them before we're signing off here. Hey, look at that error message. Main win 1127. I really feel like get level should not be returning a string. So we're going to go ahead and sort that out there instead of at all the call points. Aaron Bard says, thanks. You are welcome. Thanks for being here. Okay, so if we set level 65, let's go ahead and reload this plugin. That expansion of Shadows of Angmar is doing something weird. Also, I'm just noticing the count here is also doing something weird. Not much I can do about that for right now. Okay, we can see if we're below level 70, we're getting a minimum level of 70. As soon as we get to 70, we're seeing server cap of 75. And then when we go to 75, we see it's available. Now, what I'm also seeing is that some of the other quests, or some of the other deeds, are also seeing server cap 75. So, okay, so yes, the bar up here is doing something improbable, but you shouldn't be able to complete these server cap. No, that's not true, because you could have completed them at an earlier server cap. So let's add this to our to-do file for next time. Good progress done, but look at Shadows of Angmar completion when going to character level 74. We see 91 of 79. Yeah, because the completed cap level deeds aren't being counted. But we could have completed them at an earlier cap level, as happened. Great Barrel was probably done at 50. Okay, so I think that can be fixed. But at that point, we have solved the problem, which is distinguishing between a deed's minimum level and a deed's need to be done at server cap, and how you might be below the minimum level or between the minimum level and cap or at cap, and how we want to see each of those three. And so once we fix this, the progress bar, so that the denominator includes completed server cap deeds, I think we'll be in luck. So fantastic. Progress is being made. Okay, so what does that look like? And do we feel, I think maybe I'll hold off on committing so we can kind of review it at the beginning of next time and make sure we didn't miss anything. So I'm not going to commit this. It'll sit on my drive until later, but we're getting really close. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions coming into chat. So with that in mind, do I have anything else on the to-do items? I don't see anything. So with that, that is all we are going to cover today. Aaron Bart says, take care and rest well. I will try to. Thank you all so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you here next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right. Bye-bye now.